Welcome to the Vision Driven Basketball Training Podcast. Appreciate everybody who's here, who's tuned in, everybody listening, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Shout out to you guys. You guys are on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you guys go down, leave a review. Let me know what you think of the show. Shout out to you guys. You guys have been doing a great job of doing that recently. And the show's growing. I mean, every week the numbers are up, and it's because of the support you guys give. So I'm very appreciative for that. YouTube, you guys as well. Thank you guys for watching, for subscribing, for supporting all of my stuff. And today, special episode. I believe this is our first recurring guest that we've ever had on the show. Actually, I think Gabe, you might have been the first guest on. So like you're just, I mean, this is milestones every time you're on, apparently. Like my guy, Gabe, go ahead and introduce yourself for the people. I mean, this is one of like for anybody who's been around for a while, like they know you. But I think the last time you were on, honestly, my channel might have doubled in size since the last time that you were on. So I'm sure there's some people who probably and you've got such an interesting mix of what you do, and I'll let you get into it. But with the Quicksand Mindset brand is fantastic, and it's a really unique spin on stuff that people are doing. I think the way that you approach is awesome. So go ahead and let the people know a little bit about you.
Yeah. So my name is Gabe. It's Gabe Sandoval. The name Quicksand is a nickname. So quick because I'm quick on my feet on the court, and I'm also a quick thinker. And then my last name is Sandoval. So Quicksand is when we put it together like that. So that's been a nickname for a long time. It started off with my dad, and then it got passed down. And then in college, I played basketball throughout my whole life. Elementary to middle school to AAU, and college I played just at the rec center, just casually, and I just fell in love with the art of training, and looking at people, like DJ Sackman and just Michael Lancaster and those guys, and seeing what they're doing, and I was like, I love the game, and I feel like I can teach, and so I got into basketball training. That's why I started Quicksand Hoops, so we can get into that. We can start that now. So Quicksand Hoops is how I started. And that was just solely just like basketball training. And, I did that for only basketball training for like a year and a half, 2 years. And then I started, falling in love with the weight room. So, lifting weights on my own. And then eventually I became a certified personal trainer. And with that, I started to realize that, when the kids were in season with basketball, they needed more than just like basketball skills, because now they're in season and they're away from me. So now I'm just like, okay, what can I do to be able to still bring value to people in a different way other than basketball? And so I was like, well, let's become a certified personal trainer, and let's work with people, adults or just anyone, teens who are just trying to, lose weight, gain strength, just start moving and feeling better about themselves. So, that's kind of why I ventured into that. And now the Quicksand Mindset, this happened in the last few months, actually. I wanted to branch away from Quicksand Hoops, because I felt like I was stuck in a bubble of just basketball, and I feel like I have a lot more to offer than just basketball, because I love fitness, I love basketball, but I also fell in love with like reading and listening to people, like for example Russ and Jay Shetty, and people who are more successful, and they share their mind, they share their mentality, and the Mamba mentality, and they pretty much, they've found the perfect marriage between like being successful in like your business and what you're trying to do, and then just like regular life, and I think that's where I wanted to bring the Quicksand Mindset, to bring it all together, and to have, now the logo is my mind and brain right here, and then the basketball like split in half. These are two that go together. Then you have the the barbell on the back that also looks like headphones, because I also love music. So music is just something that that all of us use to be able to tap into, just like if you're looking to lift weights, music just kind of like get you going. If you're trying to relax, go to sleep, or if you're trying to study, you put certain music on, right? And so things like that. But the Quicksand Mindset is something that I just wanted to branch out and show that I can do a lot more.
Yeah. No, and I was saying the other day when I saw your one of your video intros, dude, the logo is heat, man. It goes so
Yeah, man.
hard.
Appreciate it.
And yeah, and I think one of the things that I've got to, and actually, I think last time you were on, we talked about that transition a little bit from, because
Mm,
at that point you were still Quicksand Hoops, so it was still predominantly basketball. I think at that point you were probably like maybe a month into the Quick Talks. And so I
mm,
think you had mentioned then that you were thinking about making some sort of like merger between of like, all the things that you were doing into one. And
yeah.
but it's awesome to see that now. But kind of to go back to what I alluded to right there, where are you now with the Quick Talks? I honestly like I've lost count of the
Mm,
days. I see it every day, but it's like at this point,
yeah.
man, it's impressive that just to be able to put something out every day, and something unique
Hmm.
and something that's like of quality as well. I think that's probably another reason that you've been able to kind of make that transition, and I think that's why your brain works so well. Is I think you really live what you talk about.
Right. Yeah. So I appreciate the compliment. And I'm on day 183. So I think 183 is today, and it's 183 of me. So the Quick Talks is a segment that I have on my Instagram, and I post it on TikTok as well. And basically, with this segment, it's just like I just wanted to give game and just give some kind of like valuable content, whether it's like me talking into the camera and telling the people what I've learned through books, what I've learned through mentors, what I've learned through friends around me. And it's just, it could be like a quote, it can be just like a concept or an idea where like I ask a question to the comment, to the people reading it and stuff like that. Um, and so I've been doing that pretty much every day for 183 days. And there also comes a point where there's people who tell their story better than what I can say. So then that's where I started. Like I'm like, okay, well, I can't say everything, right? I don't know everything. So let me just find something that has motivated me in the past. For like example, like E.T. the hip hop preacher. He's a guy who just motivates people, and I found a lot of his content is valuable to me. So just screen record it, and I'll make that into a quick talk, and then just shout him out in the description and stuff like that. So I've been trying to just give free game and just try to help people grow their minds.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I kind of we had talked about earlier with this whole like with this episode. We'll
Hmm.
again we're both big time hoops guys. Like, we love it, and but there's also so much else that I think that we can go into. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of I know that we had talked a little bit about like some stuff that you had like, why did I start a podcast? Well, part of it is like I can like we could talk about what we want. I can bring people on who I like talking to, and
Yeah.
we just kind of talk and have a conversation. So that was one thing. I think kind of to keep it in that realm, kind of, but I guess to shift it a little bit more towards basketball. What is like my question is so especially over the past year, 6 months now with the Quick
Mhm.
Talks and you growing your brand, all that sort of stuff. What has that taught you? Like what lessons have you taken from that, and any that you can relate back to hoopers who are watching, guys who are
Mhm.
coming up trying to make a way for themselves, not necessarily the way that you and I are doing it, but even if it's just like trying to make their varsity, trying to play college basketball, trying to play pro basketball.
Yeah. So I think that's a great question, and I think what it really shows and demonstrates 183 days straight is discipline. You gotta do the things you need to do when sometimes you don't feel like doing them. In my case, I love to do it because I love to give back, and I love to to serve and to bring content to people. So if you're a hooper trying to get to the next level, you need to be disciplined. And if you don't feel like working out today or tomorrow, you have to get it done, because you got to know that there's people out there who want that, and they're actually going to go out there and work out in the rain, work out in the snow, work out when the conditions aren't right, when the timing isn't perfect, when maybe they're out with an ankle injury, but they're still out there shooting, right? They're doing the things that need to be done. So discipline is extremely important. And just making sure you're around people like yourself, or know people like you, who are doing the things you need to do. You've been really consistent with the podcast. Every week you've been posting it. You haven't missed one. So it goes hand in hand with that. And I think you know you got to start at an early age. If you're a younger hooper, just really just be disciplined every day. Work on something. Maybe 5 to 10 minutes of just like ball handling or just form shooting. Just get the work in, and just stick to it for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely what I would say. Actually, I keep on forgetting to bring it up, but this would be, I think it's podcast. I think it's episode 56 of the podcast. So it was we just hit a year, like almost a month ago now at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I mean,
Congrats.
that's, yeah, I mean, it doesn't even seem like that.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, like, again, I'm just so appreciative for everybody who's watching right now. Like, I haven't even got a chance to even like look back at it yet and be like, oh man, it's been a whole year since the podcast started. Cause I remember when I first started, I just like, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't really know how to even go about talking on a camera for that long. And it's still
Right.
something that I'm figuring out. There wasn't really anybody like who like I saw really doing that in the like
Mm-hmm.
the kind of realm that we're doing it. Like everybody, business wise, everybody's got a podcast. Every celebrity has a podcast. When it came to like
Mm-hmm.
basketball training, there wasn't. I didn't see anything from like what I was trying to do. Like I didn't see anything from that kind of regard as well. So I think part of it is like trying to see, because I get questions all the time. I think this can relate back to this too. I get questions all the time from players that will be like, hey, should I do this sort of training? Like, should I do, high intensity training if I want to do this? Or if I want to get quicker, should I do this? Or
Mm-hmm.
should I go to the gym at 5 a.m. and then also go back at 7 p.m. Because I don't know if I'm going to be too tired or not. And part of it is just like, at some point, you got to do it and see what works and then see what doesn't. Like, I think a
Right.
lot of, I think having the internet, having people to learn from is a great thing. But I think some people like can use it as a crutch at times where it's like, I don't have to actually go out and do, I can just, I can just see what someone else did and I can try and like,
Mm-hmm.
kind of tiptoe around ever having to make a mistake or fail at something.
Right.
And like for me, there are podcasts I'll put out that don't get any views. Like there are videos I'll put out that I'm like, oh, this is a banger of a video. And then like, boom, doesn't get any views. And it's like, sometimes that's just like, sometimes this is how it is. Like, I'll put out a video and I think it's great. And then like, someone might comment on your video and say it's terrible. Like that's life though. Like you have to be able
Mm-hmm.
to step out. So I think one thing I would say too is like, you have to be willing to just go out and do and see what works. And so much of like my responses to now to people, like when I get DMs or even just like the players that I work with in person, it's just like
Mm-hmm.
the amount of times I just say figure it out. Like I'm just like I'll get a question and it's like you just got to figure it out. And more often than not, that's more important than you getting it right the first time. Like even if you like mess that up, like I tell you to figure it out and you lose the ball during the drill, but that you losing the ball lets you know like, okay, I can't do that anymore. So maybe I got to do that. Now like you're starting to figure stuff out yourself. And I think, for me, it's like, you can give a man a fish, right? He eats for a day, or you can teach a man how to fish and then you can fish for a lifetime. I think that's kind of where
Right.
I'm trending towards a lot of with when it comes to like my interaction with players is like, I'm like, I don't want to just give you like the answer every single time. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you might need it, but a lot of times it's like, you got to be able to go, step out and risk potentially failing if you want to like grow at all.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree 100% with that. And I think it really just takes that player, that person to be vulnerable and to, like you said, be willing to take a loss, because the ups and downs are going to be able to teach you those lessons, and you can't, it gets tough because you see, like for a high school hooper or even like college and stuff like that, but mostly high school, there's a lot of high school kids that are like famous off of basketball now. You get to look on Instagram and you see these kids dunking and they have all the followers and they have everything going for them, but you're just like an average Joe, if you can think about it like that, and you're just like, wow, like I don't even want to try to, I don't know what it takes, but also I don't want to fail and like not be like him or her, and I think that can be a crutch, like you said, and it really it can be a thing of just disconnecting, from social media and just really focusing on, disconnecting from the stuff that is bothering you, and then connect with people like you and I, like content like ours, where you can actually learn from and you can grow your mind and you can like challenge yourself to step out of your comfort zone. And I think that, that's really what it takes, for just people in general, but just hoopers and anyone just stepping out and trying stuff for
Yeah.
sure.
When you bring up those like high school kids, you've got middle school kids, high school kids who are famous playing basketball as seventh, eighth
Mm,
graders. You've got these massive channels, with Ball is Life and well, not Who Mixtape so much anymore, but like Overtime and all those
mm,
channels. And I think that the question that I got, a DM I got, was from a kid probably like early high school, and with him it was like, you know, he was like, man, I really like, I can't stand these channels because it seems like they're trying to paint a picture of like what you're supposed to be as a player when you're 14, 15. It's like, if you're not dunking the basketball as a 14-year-old, then like you're not good. When
mm,
in reality, 98% of 14-year-olds aren't dunking the basketball, but you just have kind of those
mm,
top guys right there. And it's like it's almost, it's a facade really. And I think that,
mm,
to an extent, I think a lot of times it props players up to be a little bit higher than they probably should be, especially at an early age. I mean, I don't know how, like at an age like 13 or 14, you'd be able to handle like having
sure.
having a mixtape blow up and you get millions of people who are following you right now. Like, I don't
Mm,
know how at that age you'd be able to handle that. But I don't know if you have any thoughts on like the like mixtape culture, or
mm,
whether you think it's a positive thing. Because like, I guess in one regard, it, for the popularity of basketball, it's definitely a good thing, because all these, everybody watches those videos, especially like the younger kids, then they want to play basketball. So that's why basketball is growing the way it is, because of social media, honestly.
mm.
But at the same time, I think that there's a pretty sizable downside to it as well.
Yeah, no, I think when I was in high school, I'm 26 now, so I'm kind of removed from high school. But when I was in high school, I love the mixtapes, so for me, it motivated me, to be able to see like a Ryan Harrell mixtape was one of my favorites. John Wall, Akio Carr was towards the latter part of my high school year, and you get to see those like highlights that stick out, and I would study that exact move that worked for them and why it worked, and then from there, just try to like mimic it in the best way. There's obviously some moves that were just like, all right, that was instinctual. I can't really learn too much from that. But if there was like for example, like a float, like there was one that Ryan Harrow did in his mixtape. He did a behind the back left hand, behind the back float, and then he hit him with a crossover. And I was like, what set that up?
Yeah.
And I kept studying, and it was the float dribble. The float dribble kind of, or the glide, or I don't know how different people call it different things, but he floated and he shifted his entire body and got that defender to also shift out of his positioning. And then he hit him with the crossover. And it was just like, that works. You're right. And then I put that into my game.
Mhm.
So if you pick and choose the clips that that you can actually learn from and put into your game, do that on every level. There could be a middle schooler who pulls off a move and you're like, okay, like that was a nice move. Let's study it. Let's figure out why that worked for him. But if we're going back to like how it really feels, I mean, I think I would just honestly have to ask the kids that I work with, right, and see, how does it really make you guys feel to know that, if you're not dunking, or if you're not 6'5" as a 14-year-old, that you're not going to be, a great player. Like, I think it's important for us to tap in, with that kind of age group and see exactly how they feel. Because, I mean, for me, you know, it is what it is, right? There's always going to be levels to everything. So, there's always going to be someone better than you, more athletic, taller, so there's not much you can do. It's just like amplified.
Yeah. Yeah. That, I think that's the thing with the amplification of it. Even from when I was in high school, like it was kind of, it's not what it is now, because that was like pre TikTok, so things didn't get viral the way that they get viral now. But
Right.
I was like, back when I was like, especially like middle school, early high school, and it was like you had like guys like Keo Carr and Marcus Levette, like those two were, I remember
Yeah.
watching those, and
Mhm.
those were like Seventh Woods, his mixtape
Yeah,
too.
bro.
Um,
That's
but
ridiculous.
I think, yeah, I think like to your point there, I think one of the things you can take away from that and one thing that I say, like when I get messages like that, is you have to stay out of that comparison trap. And it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're a basketball player. It doesn't matter if you're, a YouTuber, or like if you're just. It doesn't matter if you work at Starbucks. It doesn't matter what you do. Like trying to compare yourself, because one of the you sent me a message earlier today talking about what was it? It was Dharma, and what was the other word?
Sonder.
Yeah, Sonder. So I was like, I didn't know what Sonder meant, so I looked that up, and so it was like basically understanding that everybody else has an equally complex life to you, even though
Right.
you don't feel like it at all. It feels like, oh, like everything is me. It's me, 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 me. I don't recognize that person also is this. They think the same way. Like they also, it's me, 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 me for them as well. So
Yeah.
I think understanding that, like every person, it has so much complexity and so much, like there's so much stuff that you have no idea about. So trying to compare yourself and trying to and then letting that like determine how you feel about yourself is just it's a really bad place to put yourself in. I think especially basketball wise, and at an early age too. Like at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter like how good you are when you're 14 years old. It doesn't matter how good you are when you're like, it doesn't really matter for guys who are just like, everything kind of balances out, right? You have the guys who are going to be. I was at a AAU tournament this weekend, and I was coaching one of our teams, the 14U team, and that age group is so funny because you'll have kids who are like literally full beards, like 6'2", dunking, like,
Yeah.
and then you'll have also a kid on the same team who's like, he looks like he just learned how to tie his shoes like a couple weeks
Yeah.
ago. Like it's literally like that's the age you have. So like you have kids who are like at that age are so far ahead just because they hit puberty a little bit earlier, and then but you check back in 3 years and that kid might have completely stopped growing and didn't develop at all as an athlete, and then
Right.
that kid who wasn't had to overcome that stuff at an earlier age, all of a sudden you have that advantage later on because now you do start to grow up a little bit and get a little bit stronger, a little more athletic, and all of a sudden you had to take those skills, like the Anthony Davis thing, right, where he's like he's a guard his whole career, and then all of a sudden he's 7 feet tall. So now because he had to develop those skills, and now you're a 7-footer, you're going to be an NBA Hall of Famer. So
Right.
it's I think just focusing on what you do is such a big thing. And for me, like when it comes to YouTube or training or whatever, like there are a lot of guys I can look at, and it's funny, like you can look at a guy and be like, oh man, like how did I not think of that? Like they'll put out a video idea, like, or like even just like an Instagram clip. And you're like, man, that's a great idea. I wish I would have thought of that. And then the choice you have to make there is like, okay, am I gonna let this be like a thing where I'm like, oh man, like I've got to start comparing myself and I am this guy and see, oh, is he going to do that first or is he going to do that first? It's like, no, you just got to like, there's so much, like there's plenty for everybody. Like there's plenty out there, and no matter what you do, right? You with basketball, it doesn't matter how good somebody else is. There's a spot somewhere for you too. So just focusing 100% on like me, like for me, it's like, I got to focus on making the best content I can, learning as much as I can, because the players that I do get to work with and the players who, watch my videos, I'm going to have a chance to make an impact there, even though, again, it might not be for everybody. It won't be for everybody. That's just something to kind of accept.
No, and I think going a little bit back to Sonder, and to realize that, when you get to talk to other like creators, content creators, or people who are, like yourself, who are putting out programs, you're putting out YouTube videos, and you're really engaging with the podcast and stuff like that, like to know that you have the confidence to do it, and you have the the discipline, but also you still have those, like, maybe every now and then you're just like, damn, like I should have thought of that, or like, this is stressful, there's a lot of stuff going on, and to also know that you feel the same, that like how I feel a lot of the times, you know what I mean? It's empowering, and it makes me feel we're human, right? And so, there's going to be mistakes that are made, but as long as you're putting forth the best effort possible, and you're creating your own unique spin on what you do, whether you're a basketball player or a content creator, or just like a person, just have your own unique spin, a unique perspective on what you do, and because you have something to offer that somebody is in need of. It's just a matter of like everything connecting for you. right? And so, just being persistent on, all that type of stuff is extremely valuable for sure.
I think another point that you made earlier, talking about when you're watching like mixtapes and stuff, and you see a guy do something, and then it's like, okay, well, hold up, how did he do that? Like, how did he make that defender do that, or how did he get that look?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest thing with me now compared to when I was in high school, because I watch so much basketball now, and there's so many times where like I'll be watching something and then I'll be like, oh, hold on, like I got to see how that worked, or why that works, or what were his feet doing that time, or what were his eyes doing that time. And that like I was saying this week, I think actually I was saying on last week's podcast, I was talking about shooting, and I was saying like I'm I'm a significantly better shooter now than I was in high school. I was working out every day and going like game speed every day. Now I'm not working out every day. I'm in the gym a lot, just training, but I'm not like going through my own sort of game stuff. But because I'm just literally like around the basket, just like working my form all the time, it's translated to me being a better shooter in general, and being a more consistent shooter in general. And I think it's the same thing. The other aspect to that is like the amount of film that I watch now compared to when I was in high school. I just understand the game so much better. And that's like, so I always say like, if I went back to high school now, even though I'm training less than I was back then, like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a weird sort of, it's kind of a weird paradox right there. It's like, all I do now is watch basketball and basically like play pickup. And I'm better now than I was back then. But I think one of the biggest things is watching film. And
Mm-hmm.
so what's your like, because I know obviously you're posting drills and stuff. So what's your like, where's your influence when it comes to like the stuff you work on in your sessions? Like, does it depend on like the certain player? Are there like qualities that you're trying to build in every player, or is it just like oh, this is something that I've been watching recently, and so let's try and work on this, and where do you like kind of get your stuff from?
Mm-hmm. So I think you just hit both of those points right there. I think it also depends on the player and what kind of team and structure they're going to be in. So that's one basis of it, and then the other part of it is just like if I see something, for example, that like Kyrie does, that's not too out of the ordinary or not too like what did he just do, and I feel like that player can benefit from it, then I'll bring that to them. So but also there's like intangibles, like the things that I love to teach is just the float dribble, just different types of like hezzies. I think just having those two, in your bag, will get you a long way, no matter what kind of player you are, right? So the hang dribble, just being able to get people out of position and reading the floor, being able to see, okay, when do I have a shot? Okay, there's an opportunity. When can I pass off of this? When can I push off of that back foot and take off, right? And get to the middle. And once you get to the middle, the teeth of the defense, then you can break down, everything. So I think just teaching players to be able to operate and feel like the ball is on a string. I think that's just one thing that's for me. I just love to teach that, and just catch and shoot. We have the Dr. Dish here, so just being able to just knock down shots. If you can knock down shots, you can be on any team. Because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is really what it is, right? You can knock down shots drifting to the right, drifting to the left, shots off of the dribble. I love teaching one dribble pull ups. Just seeing Kobe do it his whole career in Jordan. They've obviously made a living out of it, and they're legends because of it. So just the basics, the fundamentals, the foundation, and is really building a good base. The example that I like to use is like a house, right? If you're building a house, you don't start from the roof, right? You got to start with the foundation. You got to lay the foundation out, and you got to go brick by brick, or like however you build the house, it has to start from the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
right? So for us, it has to start with the footwork. You have to make sure you're on balance, that you can stay upright as you're jabbing right, as you're jabbing left. Use both feet, right? Be able to put the ball down before you take off, so you don't travel, right? Just like those things are extremely important. They're not really they're taught, but I feel like kids just like we're looking at mixtapes and they're just like, well, that guy didn't do a jump stop, jab step shot. He did all this, he started dribbling right away. And so I think it's important to really teach just the fundamentals and the foundation. I think of like all the European players, like Luca, his foundation is just like, it's immense, and he knows exactly what he needs to do, and he uses his footwork to be able to get to the spots on the floor that he operates out of. And so, that's important. So that's kind of like that part of it. And then the second part is just like just studying film to like an extent. I'm more like, nowadays I'm just like, if I go on Instagram and I see Swish Cultures, I don't know if you follow Swish Cultures, but they post like highlights of the day. So like they'll post like a Drew Holiday highlight where he doesn't move. And I'm like, I like that. So then I'll go on YouTube, and then like a better, like higher quality, because Instagram kind of compresses it. Go on YouTube and find that clip, and then just like study it and be like, okay, this player can benefit from it. Like, my guy Josh, he can benefit from, a one dribble pull up, like the way that Drew Holiday did it, or like a 1 foot shot, like just small things like that. I think just trying to just be active and be up to date on what's happening now.
Yeah. I think going to your footwork point, or really not even footwork, but just like the basics, I think that's an area, like coaching so many players now, between like the stuff that I do with my individual, like my in-person training, and then the high school team that I coach, the AU team that I work with, and then obviously like players that I know through YouTube and Instagram. Like it's crazy how much the basics, like they're not basic anymore. Like it seems like those are stuff that you have to explicitly drill. And again, that's my other thing, is like I spend so much time like demonstrating basic stuff, like especially when it comes to like shooting footwork. Like in any of my session, we're probably gonna do it almost every time. So that's the other reason why I feel like I'm just a way better shooter now, because my balance is it's infinitely better than it was, because just the basic footwork part of it. Okay, I can come off of a 1-2, and I can flow into that shot. I can also, if I need to, go off of a hop if I have to get that shot off quicker. And I understand like innately when to use both of those different types of footwork. Maybe if I'm coming off of a curl, I know which angle to take off of that. I know like where am I supposed to step to come off of this effectively. Do I need to take a long step on my one dribble pull up, or does it need to be short because that defender is playing back, and do I have to turn dribble out and get to space? And I think just players being able to do that sort of stuff, it will transform the way that you can play, because then you can start to layer on that more difficult stuff. Like in my shooting program, so much of like every workout, there's just basic footwork stuff, and there's a whole workout that's literally called shooting foundations, and it's just like working form, working footwork, working form again, working more footwork, and then just getting comfortable doing that. I think that's an area of shooting that's so underutilized. Is like everybody thinks they have to get in the gym and like they have to go shoot game shots. You have to shoot shots sprinting out of the corner, or lifting up to the wing, or coming off a pin down. And those are all, of course, have their place. Like that, you have to practice those too. But I think there's also a time and place for just getting up shots, like in the mid range, catch and shoot, just like seeing the ball go in the basket. Like you got a great feel for it. Say like, that shot felt good, right? Because I think that's where a lot of players, like they aren't quite there yet, where they can like, they don't just judge the shot based on the make or miss. Can you judge it based on whether or not it felt good? Like did that shot feel good? Did you execute well? Was your footwork on point right there? And I think a lot of players are just kind of like, again, they don't have that solid grasp of the foundation enough to where they can rely on that and say, hey, that didn't feel good. They just like, they don't make or miss. So I think that's a point where like I constantly have to drive that home, is like, guys, you see Steph Curry do all these crazy things. Now Steph Curry is I don't think anybody will ever be him. He's just, ridiculous, out of this world. But like the stuff that you can take from Steph is, I saw he was asked about like, so what's the number one key to you to like your shooting ability? And he was like, balance, for sure. So that comes back to, again, like your footwork consistently. And so Steph's a guy who's preaching the importance of balance, like you said earlier. I think like that basic part of it is something that players need to make sure that they master. Like you don't skip over that part and just say, hey, I just got to go work on my game shots. No, like when you're in a game, every shot's going to be a little bit different. So a shot you shoot at the elbow might be a little bit different than the next shot from the elbow at the same spot, because you might have been coming from a different angle. There might be a defender coming from a different angle. There might be less time on the clock. You might just be, your heart rate might just be up a little bit or down a little bit. Like there's all these different factors. And so the more mastery that you have over your shot in any sort of situation, that's really what I'm trying to build with a lot of my players recently, and with my program too, is like guys who can just be put on the floor and they're bucket getters, because no matter what the situation is, they're like, they can adapt to it. They have that adaptability. I think that's a big key. And I know like you post a ton of stuff with creativity, especially ball handling wise, and like adaptability. So talk a little bit about that. Like you, especially when it comes to ball handling, the importance of your kind of creativity and how that has sort of developed for you and your players.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect question, because it goes back to what you said about feel. It's hard to teach the feel of like why that went in, or how it felt for it to go in all net, or how it feels to be able to like flow a certain way when you're handling the ball. And really what that comes down to is reps. It just comes down to repetition. Are you getting in your reps every day? For someone like myself, who's been playing ball since I was 3, I just feel like I didn't really do too many drills. We did some cone drills growing up, but it was more of just like having the ball in your hand and just like dribbling around the house, dribbling down the street, dribbling at school, dribbling at the gym when the adults are playing on the sideline. Just dribble. And for me, that's where this creativity came. And then you get to, hear music. If you have music in your ears, what I like to do is like dribble to the beat. It's just like you're dancing. It's just like a music. You're making your own music, or you're going along with the beat. It's kind of like a Guitar Hero kind of vibe. So I think it's for me, that's where the creativity just really comes. And just thinking about players like Jamal Crawford, who have been noted in interviews saying that he didn't do any drills growing up. He just dribbled the ball. And one hot sauce, I'm pretty sure he said he just dribbled the ball. And they didn't do cone drills like we're doing now, or like just drills. And these drills work because they're more intricate and they have like detail as to why. But have the ball in your hands. If you don't have a rim, just shoot like form shots. Just shoot like as if the rim is there. You have to like tap into your imagination and really put yourself in front of the rim. Or when I'm dribbling at the gym, when I was by myself, or even like out here in the yard, I'm dribbling as if like I'm in a situation, like someone's guarding me, and I'm trying to get by that person. And sometimes I'll do a move and I'll go to the basket and then I act like I get stopped. Now I retreat dribble, then I get into a float, drop, pull up, and I just really feel I practice as if I'm in a real game. And then we make up games. Like you can play 21 against yourself. So right here we have lines. So like if you make it behind a certain line, it's a 2-pointer. If you make it in the paint, it's 1. Just play 21 against yourself and just play real life games. I think that that's been really helpful for me. And the reps, you can't get by the reps, because there's going to be bad reps in the beginning and there's going to be good reps. And you'll find eventually you're going to have a good feel for that movement. And there's an example that I like to use of like video games. When we first started playing video games, if you're into that, we had to look at the controller to be able to know what button we're pressing, to be able to relate to the screen and stuff like that. Then eventually you can look up and you're kind of better at it now, and you're making if you're playing 2K, you're finally making the shots. And then eventually you get to the point where you're just like not looking at all. And you're just, the muscle memory is kicked in, you got the reps, you can go grab something real quick, drink, and still control. Like it's just like amazing how the mind is able to adapt, like you're saying. So, the reps go a long way, good and bad. And I think you just got to put yourself in those situations to be able to expose that.
Yeah. That same point Jamal Murray was basically what John Morant said too. He's like, yeah, when I was growing up, I just always had a ball in my hands. Like, I was in the house anytime a commercial break, like I got a ball in my house. My dad put up a mini hoop. I was always at that mini hoop in my house. Like, that's why like these guys. I think that's it right there. I think the funny thing with him is like he got discovered basically because he was playing like 3-on-3 at like in the back gym of some AAU tournament. Like it wasn't even like his team playing. He was just like hooping. He was just like playing basketball. I think like the players that I work with, and the difference between a lot of them is that I have some of them are always like they're basketball players. Like they are, if they're not training with me, they're at the park with their friends playing. They're in their driveway playing. They're playing one-on-one with their older brother or with like their neighbor. Or like they just always are playing basketball. And then I have another group of kids who like they love basketball. They like basketball. They work hard. Like whenever they're at our sessions, they work just as hard as the other guys do, but they don't see the results the way that the other guys see it because they don't have that feel for the game that you get through playing. So I have to constantly be on my guys, like, because I know some of them, like, I know you're not playing as much as you should be. I know you're not calling guys up to go to the park and play. I know you're not showing up to the YMCA to play, even though you could do that. And I know that there's people there who are playing, and you could definitely get on the court with them. And that's the biggest thing. It's like you can't just do drills. And that was one trap I for sure fell into in high school. In middle, like all growing up is like, oh, if I just do these drills, right? If I just lock myself in a gym the whole summer, don't talk to anybody, I'll come back because I did all these drills and I'll be, this level of player now. And that's not how it works. Because at the end of the day, like I was saying earlier, basketball it's such an imperfect game. So if your practice is you versus air all the time, then it's going to be pretty much perfect, right? You're going to have a perfect environment. And then you get to a game and there's defense on the floor and you got coaches who are, yelling at you, pulling you out of the game, putting you back in the game, telling you to do this, telling you to do that. You got, fans screaming at you. Game is very, very imperfect at that point. So you're going to struggle. And I see it firsthand now. I see the guys who use that to their advantage. They get really good at playing in imperfect situations because they're always like, they're adaptable. I mentioned earlier, they're adaptable because they just always hoop. They've seen so much that they're ready for it. And then the guys who don't hoop as much, they just work out. They just, show up to workouts and, maybe watch a little basketball on TV. Those are the guys who struggle when anything doesn't go their way. And anybody, like, they're not winning a matchup against a guy better than them because they don't have it. That's one of the biggest things that I've recognized, especially the past, like, I would say 2 or 3 months watching my players is like the difference between a lot of guys isn't even talent. It's just like who's a hooper and who's not.
What I've really been doing recently is just playing king of the court, with my guys or with the girls that I'm training. And, I think it's been good because, I don't go easy on them, and I try to really challenge them, especially, if I'm on defense, I'm really trying to, stop them from scoring. Right. And I'm trying to cut off all the moves that we just worked on. I'm like, that's not going to work on me. Like, you know what I mean? So now you have to really find a way to be able to get it to work or be able to bump me off and then get some space. Right. And so now you get to see, okay, this is, I need to work on this more often. Right. I'm kind of good at it now is what they're thinking. But now I know that I need to be able to learn how to create more space. I need to put in the hours when I'm not here with you. And then when they're guarding me, I feel like I'm a tough cover. So, they're really going to have to be on their game. And, that's where I just start working on like 1-foot shots and like just fade away shots that are just like kind of like Steph Curry-ish, you know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
I make them and then they're just like, they can't do much about it. Right. And so it makes it tough and it makes them know that I need to put in more work.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what I wanted to hone in is just like, you need more reps. You need more game reps. You need more repetition on just like the fundamentals that we spoke about. But really, you need to be in front of somebody at the end of the day, if you can. A friend, somebody just guarding you. Yeah. And, just like challenging you. I think that it always makes me think back to when I remember Kobe, or was it Derek Fisher? One of them was talking about they used to do one-on-one full courts and they used to go at it. every practice. And I think it might have been like the first practice ever. They were just like, yo, let's run one full court. And, they were just going back and forth, head to head, and challenging each other. And one-on-one full court is pretty hard because your conditioning has to be up. And, if you miss, you got to get right back on defense, and so that can be challenging. So you have to really step out of what you feel. You got to step out of your comfort zone at the end of the day. You have to really put yourself in those environments.
Yeah. Yeah. I think going to your point, like I'll just like what you said, like you take that opportunity, you're playing against your players, like you end up hitting just some ridiculous shots, like where you're just like taking these fadeaways, these step backs. That's literally what I've been doing. Like I'll play against my players all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
I hit these shots, especially in the mid range. I'll have guys who will look at me and they're like, how are you making those? Like I know I don't know how you're making, because like I'm not making those shots. I feel like I'm better than you. And it's literally just because I play, like I play a lot of one-on-one. And so you learn eventually like how to put the ball in the basket. And sometimes there's no real rhyme or reason for it. But that was just an interesting point that you had right there. I know you have a few things that you kind of had on your docket. So wherever you want to head, just let me know. We'll go there.
Yeah. No, I think, what about Dharma? Just having, so when your natural talents and passions connect with the universe's needs, and then that becomes your purpose. So what would you feel like your Dharma, or like your, what would you feel like your Dharma is?
I mean, I think for me, and I don't know how well this answers it, but it's always been like, I always look at it as, what can I give that I feel like I didn't have? Like, what knowledge can I give to players? What insight can I give to players? Like, what role can I play that I feel like I could have definitely used when I was in their shoes as well? That's how I always approach things. And that's ultimately what it comes back to, whether it's in like a session and I see like, I can see patterns that players have. And I'm like, that, like, I did that when I was there. Like, that's something that, and now I recognize it. So we can talk about it then. I can say, hey man, like, you can't do that. Like, we got to fix this here. We got to do this instead. You got to approach it this way instead. You've got to, in that situation, you've got to win that one. Like, how can I help develop like the dog, like the it factor? Like what that, cause that was another thing that like, I probably needed more push towards that earlier. So now when I get an opportunity, that's kind of what I do. So I feel like for me, that's honestly like the best part about being able to work with players every day, is like you get to kind of give back in that regard. And it's one of those things where it's like, everybody, like when that sort of relationship happens, like everybody wins, right? Because they get better, and then you feel like, man, like I'm doing something, like I'm benefiting, this person in a positive way. And then it's kind of like a pay it forward thing. I know for me, when I was in high school, there was a trainer in our area, and he was a really, really good trainer, one of the best that I've had. And so I was planning on playing college basketball, kind of like I'll go speed through my story. But then some stuff happened, ended up not going to play. And literally I took off. This was right out of high school. I literally didn't touch a basketball. As soon as I like knew I wasn't going that year, I was just like, okay, I guess I'm done with basketball. So I didn't play basketball for like 2 months. The longest I've probably ever gone since I was like 12 without touching a basketball. Actually, probably before that, probably like 5 years old. That's probably the last time I've got 2 months without touching a basketball. So eventually I get a text from this guy, this trainer who I'd worked with a couple times. And he was like, man, I don't want you to quit. Like, I don't want you to, like, I feel like there's still something more that you could do. And he's like, listen, I'll train you for free this entire year, and just show up. Like, we work out in the morning. So we work out at like 5:30 every morning. I show up. Usually we have a group in there, and by far the most transformative year of my life, basketball wise, by far. Like, it wasn't even close. Just being in there working every day, actually got me more college opportunities the next year, a year out of high school. And actually I had more places that were like that actually were wanting me there. Like, it was like, there's a difference between like coach saying, yeah, you could come here. And then you got coaches like, yeah, like we want you to be here. Like there is a difference there a year later. And then I ended up not doing that because I was coaching, I was training already. And that was kind of what I wanted to do anyway. And then I started my YouTube channel like right around then as well. So, I decided not to go with any of those options. But still, like, had that opportunity not happened, like had I not, like, I don't know if like would I have gotten back into, maybe I would have gotten back into basketball, but I mean, possibly. But like, who knows, right? Who knows if like, would we even be here right now if there hadn't been that one, like the one text I got where I was like, you know what, may as well. And so I think that for me is like, that I feel like is my purpose, is like kind of paying that forward. That's always what I go back. It's like, how can I give value to this person? Like, is this going to help propel their life forward? Because I've seen what this game can do. Like people say it like tongue in cheek, like, "Yo, basketball's just a game," and it is. Like if I'm at an AU tournament yesterday and there's like parents fighting kids and stuff, I'm like, guys, this is a game. All right, that's where it's applicable. But like, it's more than that. Like there's so much that can change like with your life because of basketball. So that's what I would say if I had to talk about like my purpose kind of makes the game. Because again, like the growth that I've seen, that lets me know that that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right. No, I think that was a perfect answer. And everyone's answer is going to be different, but I think the way you connected it and said, right now I'm helping, I'm giving, I want to assist, and then you end up serving other people just because of what one coach or one person was able to give for you or to give to you. And I think that it's perfect, that you're doing it that way, because it's really organic, the way you're approaching it now. And there's no true pressure. There's no like this is not forced upon you. This is something that you love to do. You already love basketball. You love, the game and helping other people. So now you're just going to create the content based off of that and think of ideas that are like, okay, how can I help a player who, is struggling with pull-ups or struggling to see the floor? I can do a series that breaks down how players should move and 4 different breakdown like shots that people need to have, right? And so then you're creating content based off of what you would have wanted to know or what you feel players are missing. And this if you do it in the realm of like service and giving back, I think it becomes fun and it becomes purposeful, and you start to move a certain way. I think one of the things that for me, even I posted quick talks, and I have a lot of confidence in myself. There's still a lot of times where you're the most famous person who looks confident and all that stuff isn't always confident all the time, and they're not always on point and always like willing to to give back and to just like be motivated all the time. Like there's times where I don't feel motivated at all, and I don't feel like posting, or like I don't want to do everything and like have to go that way. But I always check myself and just tell myself it's really all about service. Like this is why I'm in it, to be able to give back and to be able to help grow other people, so that way they can give the same back to other people. It just becomes a cycle of just like of this real like positive energy that can flow and really help other people grow their minds and grow through whatever they're doing.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like the more that you give, the more that you get back, and that's always how it is. So I think one thing that I try and do, and at times I have to like check myself and be like, all right, are you doing this? Is I should like, you want to overgive, right? Especially when it comes to like, because obviously I have my programs and stuff, but there's times where it's like, like this is valuable, like this is stuff that you have to overgive, right? Because it's going to come back to you in some sort of way. And again, it's not always about like, okay, it might not always be about money. It might be just like the impact that you have, right? And a lot of times that's going to like, that might take you and connect you with somebody else who is then going to connect you with somebody else. And then all of a sudden things are coming back to you like tenfold what they were. And so that's one thing that I've realized with, especially with YouTube, is like the more valuable that you try to be, like the more that you try and give, the more that you're going to ultimately receive back. And I think that's the approach that people should have if they want to, if they really want to live that principle out.
And so when did you start seeing success on YouTube, or what do you, how do you measure success?
Um, I would take it a couple different ways. You know, for me, I think one of the best things is that and it's like what I said today, like this podcast is not, it's different than like what I would normally have, because usually I'm like real laser focused in on a topic or whatever. But like I have the freedom to kind of post what I want and what I want. And there's people who will watch anything that I post. Like there's people who only watch like specific basketball stuff. They'll only watch videos where I'm doing a film breakdown. They'll only watch videos where it's a workout. Like there are people who are like that. And that's how every fan base is. Like, you know, if Drake drops a song, there's some people who are only going to listen to the rap. And if he's doing any singing, they don't want it. Right. So that's how it is with everything. But I also have people who like comment on every single video. It doesn't matter what the video is about. I already know, I can think of like 3 of them who I know will comment on this podcast for sure. And it literally doesn't even matter. So like, I think that to me is like, first of all, like having a relationship with your fans, people who follow you, where like they'll support whatever you do just because it's something that you put out. To me, it's like, it lets you know that you're doing something right, because again, regardless of what they feel like, you know, they got from it, just because it was something like, just because they connect with what you do, boom, like that's to me, that's a powerful thing. But then, you know, obviously it's great to see like, you know, the numbers go up and all that sort of stuff. But it's always like it's always a perspective thing, because the thing with YouTube especially is like, it'll be so volatile sometimes. So like you'll have a month where you'll like just go crazy with views and all this sort of stuff, and then literally you might go 3 months and like they're half of what that month just was. And like you'll have like I don't know if it was exactly this trend, but like my November through December on YouTube was like incredible. Like it was I had like 4 videos that just blew up. And so it's like, cool, you know, I'm kind of riding this a little bit. And then January, February, and pretty much all of March just like felt so dead. Like it was so dead. It would go from like, you know, I'm gaining like 300 subscribers a day to like I'd have like a 12 subscriber day or something like that. Like that's how. So I think for me, it's like you have to stay grounded and just be like, listen, you have to focus on those people who support everything that you do, who support the stuff that you make, because ultimately like the numbers are they're like, you can't just go based on the numbers, because they'll lie to you sometimes. Like sometimes you'll put out a video that might not be that good. I know I put out videos that aren't that good that will do well for some reason. And then I'll put out videos that I think are really, really helpful, especially like podcasts too. Like if you look at my channel, my podcasts always do worse than like regular videos. All of them. Like I never, like out of my top 10 videos, I'll never have a podcast crack the top 5, because I go podcast, regular video every week. So it's like half and half anyway. And the podcasts are always at the bottom in terms of views. But I feel like that's where the value is though. So even though I could probably, if I stopped posting podcasts and I just posted like workouts or film breakdowns, or, you know, any of the kind of shorter, like more basketball, like more interactive stuff, like stuff that's like quicker and to the point, my channel would probably do way better. I could probably grow a lot faster. But then at the same time, like, am I cultivating the fan base that I want? If I do that, I don't think I am. I have like, I've had a couple of videos, and it was funny the other day, Cash Nasty, he reacted to one of my videos, and it's like a test video basically. So it's like I put a clip up there, and there's a read to make, and I pause it like halfway through. You have to make that or guess what the read is. And so I made like 3 of those, and all of them blew up. Like all of them got, the LeBron one actually did the worst, but I had a Luka Doncic one that did like 100,000 views, and then I had CP3 that did like 100,000 views, and that was in like the same month, and back in like the November, December. But then like I I probably like anybody else will tell you like, oh, you had 2 videos, do that. Like you got to keep making those videos. And like, I didn't want to do it because it's not like, it just didn't feel like what my channel was about. Like I felt like I wanted to be more in depth, and I didn't want to just like do stuff. Now that's not to say I won't ever do them again. Like I might, but I didn't want to just rely on that, because am I going to get people from those videos who also are going to be watching my podcast? Probably not. So like you have to also think about what are you trying to build? Like what fan base do you want to have, and then target what you do accordingly.
Yeah, no, I think that's good information. And what do you think about when you first started, like when you didn't have a fan base? Where did you start to see traction build the most? Was it on Instagram? Was it on YouTube? And then I think from there, like what really, so you found some traction, then it's like, okay, where did you go from there? Like, did you branch into more breakdowns? Because in the beginning, say for example, your first video when you first started was the Luka Doncic breakdown, and then that was your first video, and then you're like, okay, do I keep making these? Because now you have to make a decision at that point. Do I keep
Yeah.
making these videos, or do I go into what I really want to do? Right. So what was your mindset in the beginning of that?
Yeah. So starting off, like I would say when I first got traction, I mean, I think I started like July 2019, and I was posting on YouTube, like not that consistently. I was posting like probably maybe once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks. And it was pretty like sporadic, and it wasn't really like, obviously when you start off, you don't know what you're doing. Like I didn't know what I was doing with YouTube stuff. I was just kind of throwing what I had together and put it up there from time to time. But I was posting a good amount more on Instagram. And I think where things started to take off a little bit were with the player workouts. So I think I had like a James Harden one. I was just thinking one day, I was like, oh, I should just make a workout that like, works some of the stuff that he does. Like, so it was like super, looking back at it now, it's so funny. I just did like a bunch of like ISO, like size up moves and stuff. And it was like, but it was cool. And that was my first video that like people, like I probably, I might've had like 50 subs, and then I had a video getting like 400 views. So, oh, this is pretty awesome. And so then I kind of kept going with that, with the player workouts and stuff. And obviously people are like searching for those names anyway. They're searching for LeBron. They're searching for Steph Curry. I made a LaMelo Ball one back then in 2019 when he was still in high school. And that one, well, I guess he was playing pro then, but he would have been in high school. And that one did well too. So like that was how I started to gain a little bit more traction as well. But then again, like going back to that, it's funny because now I haven't posted a player workout in I think last one I posted was October. I think it was Tyler Hero in October. And I still get requests like all the time for them. And I'll have people DM me like, oh, when's the next player workout, and like all that sort of stuff. But it's also, it just goes back to like, what, like, is that what I want to do? Because I there's times where I'm like, I could make a player workout, but it's like, I feel like I could also make this video, which I think is actually more helpful. I can make this workout, which won't do as well views wise, but it's actually going to be more beneficial. So what it comes back to for me is like, again, when it comes like developing, people who really support what you're about. I'm always trying to post stuff that I know is going to appeal to them. So people who I know are going to like be interested in my programs. Like I'm trying to post stuff that is going to appeal to them. People who again are just going to kind of support, like they're going to listen to every podcast. Those are the people that I'm trying to target as well. And so that's also why I haven't been on TikTok as much. Just because like, partially because, it's almost like, I don't want to spreading myself too thin, but it's like, that's another thing that I would have to focus on. But I also just look at like, where am I getting my audience from now? And like, what avenues do I want to target more? And that was a big part of it. So I moved away from those player workouts, and I went to a lot of like film breakdowns, which is stuff that I like to do. And then obviously the podcast came along as well. And I think those are the main areas that I like to be in. And, for me, like I'll still have some of those videos that will just kind of blow up out of nowhere, like those older ones. the workouts or like the read videos or whatever, but like I'm pretty content with like the direction that my channel is heading in now. And so but yeah, starting off, honestly, it was like just trying to figure out what do people want to watch. And then as you build an audience, you can start to say, okay, like I have people who watch my videos. Like if I post a video, it's going to get a little bit of traction. So I can kind of now, work on what I want my audience to ultimately be.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it where it's just like really finding that audience and finding what people want to watch, because I feel personally that I feel like every content that I put out is good, is great here, because I put in all the work to be able to put it all together and to really break down with words, because I do vlogging, so like I do workout vlogs like with my clients, and we go through like a whole session, where I'm mic'd up and we go over different moves and different like footwork scenarios and stuff like that. Or if I'm working out solo, and I go through like a solo workout of me just being mic'd up and just like going through a full workout. And there's other times where like I'll break down a move that, for example, I did a Steph move the other day where he did like it was against the Sixers. It was the last move he did. So it was like a behind the back, and then he did like a float, and then he changed directions between the leg. George Hill was guarding him, and he did like a step back after that. And after that step back, he found space and knocked the shot down. And so I broke down, with the mic. I was just, all right, this is why this move works. This is how he did it. And then, after that, I show it in fast motion, me doing it. Then I show Steph doing it. And so, I feel like I just don't have the audience at the moment, or I don't have the people like following to be able to like benefit from that. Like even like with the quick talks, I'm like, or on anything on Instagram, I'm like, I have so much great content, and people that are interacting with it are just like people that I've known from high school, or people that are family or friends, but not all of them are like hoopers that are interacting with it, or like the people that I would specifically want to target. Like those people aren't interacting with it. I'm like I want it to get to those people, so that way it can, because I want to serve and I want to give to others. And so, I wanted to be, I have obviously a bigger vision for everything. But I think what you said too is just like appreciating the people that you do have supporting it, and then just being consistent, and then, it'll hopefully get to those people that it needs to get to. Because if you would have stopped, honestly, if you would have stopped doing like YouTube videos and breakdowns, you wouldn't have been where you are now in this position. But you stay consistent with it, and you you found what works, what doesn't. But even the ones that don't, you got to keep being consistent on it. And I think that what you just said was perfect, and it made a lot of sense for sure.
To that point, for when it comes to like getting, because like I'll have players who I think I've done a better job. Again, like as you grow, it gets easier of like attracting those people that you want to have follow you. I think for me, it's like I have my content that I know is good, and a lot of times my podcast, but I also have I'll have videos that I'll post, like film breakdowns talking about like a specific skill. Like maybe I'll talk about like 2-foot finishing, which I think that video did pretty well. So I'll talk. Okay. A video that I think was really good that didn't do that well was it was actually talking about shooting footwork. So it was a workout on shooting footwork, like just basic stuff, working like 1-2 hop, coming off of curls, all that sort of stuff. I thought was really good, but wasn't something that players were like all that interested in. So for me, I think like I just try and find a balance between I'm going to post what I know is valuable, but also like if I can find a spin on things, like if I can, like for example, like I post on Instagram, I'm going to try and find like the most catchy, flashy part of my video, or the most like what's the flashy headline I can say to describe like this 1-minute part of my YouTube video. And then that's what I'm going to push forward. So if someone comes to my Instagram, they're like, they see all this stuff and it's like, oh, okay, like that's interesting. I just think about it from, again, like their perspective. So when I was in high school, like what would I have wanted to watch? Like what would I have benefited from? What would I have been interested in? Because obviously like where I am now, I'm not like mentally where I was when I was in high school. So I have to kind of put myself back in that position to be like, okay, back when I was in high school, like what did I care about? Like what did I have the mental capacity for like some of the stuff that I want to talk about? Because I might not have, but maybe I could have gotten there if there was some way that I was kind of like brought in slowly. Like there's one thing that I see like, oh yeah, I understand that. Like I mess with that. And then I think that's how a lot of players have like kind of, I think that's why people have gravitated towards my channel a little bit, because I have that stuff that will kind of bring those players in. But then also I'll post stuff that, I'll talk about skill acquisition in a podcast or whatever. And like, they've never heard of that before, but they watch my videos. So now they watch that and they're like, oh wow, I never realized that was a whole part of all this stuff. And so now they recognize that content is valuable, but it all starts with like, what's that first thing they're going to see on YouTube? Usually for me, like what's the first thing they're going to see that is going to get them there? And then some people, again, you'll attract who you do just depending on kind of what you post. That's kind of how I try and go about doing things now.
That goes to when I think of when I think of like Russ, for example, who's put out so much music, and you can instantly become a fan of his based off like his latest song. So you hear his latest song with Lil Baby, it's called Ugly, or that's one of the ones that just kind of blew up. And then you go look at his whole discography, and then you see that he has over 200 songs, and then you can instantly become a fan, because he doesn't just have one video that blew up. For example, you have multiple videos, you have a podcast, you have just a realm of different like avenues that people can really like just dig into. And I think that goes to your consistency, and that it's truly important, and it's an amazing feat. And I think you definitely, I know you're proud of that for sure. And you're continuing to grow, and people around you are also going to grow and learn. So that stuff is really good, high level stuff.
Yeah, man, that's just what it is. Like as you're consistent with it, and I've got to remind myself too, like you just got to keep, even when you don't see the numbers raising or whatever, like you just keep going. Like again, I'll have a video from a year ago that'll blow, like that LeBron video that Cash Nasty saw, I posted like 4 months ago, and it was dead. Like no one was watching it, and then all of a sudden, boom! Like it gets 50,000 views in 2 days. Like it'll just like stuff will come out of nowhere. But if you put in like the work, you just like plant those seeds, then at some point they'll sprout for you. And the good thing, it's like when you have a bunch of, especially on YouTube, like people are searching for stuff, so it's like you have all these like little like salesmen out there for you, right? You just put them out there, and you got all of them working around the clock. So hey, somebody sees that video, and all of a sudden they're a fan of what you do. I hate cutting this short, but I have a Skype call with a doctor in like 2 minutes. Yeah. So I gotta
get it.
Yeah, we gotta wrap up. But before we head out, just let people know where they can follow you, what you got going on, anything that you want to talk about.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Quicksand Mindset. You can also follow me on YouTube, where I post vlogs and I post different full body, full breakdowns of different movements, and where I'm mic'd up and just kind of getting involved in the camera. That's also Quicksand Mindset. And so those are the 3 things I have going on at the moment. And I do want to learn some online marketing and online programming. So I definitely want to tap in with E and learn that stuff. So, but that's it. That's all I have, right now. Tap into the quick talks. Those are daily, get some daily motivation. And yeah, that's all I got. I appreciate you for having me, for sure.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll hop on Zoom at some point. We'll talk more about like the marketing stuff and all that, because I know that was one thing we for sure would have got to that. But yeah, hey, listen, everybody who's tuned in, again, over a year, so I appreciate all of you guys who have been here, who are new, who are now tuned in. And again, Apple Podcasts, leave a review. I got to get on the Zoom call, guys. I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.